Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Cyberdark deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this one because this deck just is amazing. I love playing this deck because it has some of the coolest artwork in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And we just got an announcement that we're going to be getting a structure deck of the Cyberdark deck eventually coming to the TCG. So I'm really excited to do an update of this deck. It really just gave me a lot of passion to actually play this deck because it's super fun to play with, and it's really insane the tech cards that I actually have in this deck. It's really fun to play with though. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell next to become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below where you have all sorts of awesome rewards for you guys, like getting your name description for every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, or even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Cyberdark Horn. So I've actually changed up the deck a little bit since the last time, and I've bumped all of my Cyberdark monsters down to 1 or 2 each, So basically what this card does is if it's normal summoned, all of your Cyberdark monsters that are the machine ones gain the abilities that if they are normal summoned, you get to target 1 level 3 or lower dragon monster in your graveyard and equip it to this card. And it gains attack equal to the original attack of the monster that is equipped to this card by its own effect. And then they gain an additional effect, whereas Cyberdark Horn has the ability that if this card battles a defense position monster, then you get to inflict piercing damage to your opponent. And they also all have the ability that if this card would be destroyed by battle, you can destroy the card that's equipped to this card instead, which is a pretty good effect just to be able to pop the card that's equipped to it instead. You play double copies of Cyberdark Edge. This card can attack your opponent directly. If it does, the damage they take is halved, which is pretty good. It's just a really good effect to be able to, if this card attacks, it's half damage, which is not that big of a deal, but being able to get this card up to like 2,500 and be able to swing at your opponent, or 2,400 and swing at them for 12 in the face, is still pretty good. Then we play the most underwhelming of them all, which is Cyberdark Keel. Keel is like good because you have to play it to go into Cyberdark Dragon, but it's a really good card to be able to go into because it inflicts 300 points of damage to your opponent if it destroys a monster by battle, which is kind of okay, but it's probably the worst of the 3. But it's still needed because you have to play it to go into your copy of Cyberdark. We then play 3 copies of Cyberdark Cannon. Cyberdark Cannon is really good because if this card is sent to the graveyard while equipped to a monster, you get to draw a card. And it also has the ability you can discard this card to add a machine Cyberdark monster from your deck to your hand, which is why I bumped all of them down to 2 each, is because this card literally turns into a 3, a 3, and a 3, where you can actually play like 3 of these at the same time because you're just playing 2, 2, and 2, but this makes it like 3, 3, and 3, with this being really good too because it turns this into any of these essentially. But it also has the ability to damage calculation. If this card is equipped to a monster battles, then you can send 1 monster from your deck to the graveyard, which helps out a lot to be able to go into stuff like Overload Fusion to be able to go into additional plays. We then play 3 copies of Cyberdark Claw. Cyberdark Claw is really good because it has the ability, if this card is sent to the graveyard, will equip to a Cyberdark monster. Then you get to target a Cyberdark monster in your graveyard and add it back to your hand, which is pretty helpful. And you can discard this card to add a Cyberdark spell from your deck to your hand. And then during damage calculation, if this card battles a monster while it's equipped to a monster, then you can send 1 monster from your extra deck to the graveyard, which will load your graveyard with some really awesome stuff to be able to equip to your Cyberdark and Cyberdarkness Dragon. We then play the same copy of Lingling. Lingling is pretty good because it has the ability that it's a union monster, and then it also has the ability to once per turn, you can either target 1 face-up monster you control and equip it to this card, or equip that card to it, and then or unequip this card and special summon it, and the original attack of this card becomes 1,000 points, and then it gains the attack of the Lingling as well, so it goes up to 2,500, which is pretty cool when it's equipped to a Cyberdark monster, which is really a cool effect. And it can make a second attack during each battle phase, which is a really good effect just to be able to attack a second time, but you just played it as a one-of because Dragon Shrine can send it to the graveyard to be a really awesome card. We then play my personal attack in the deck, which is 3 copies of Desperado Barrel Dragon. Desperado Barrel Dragon is insanely good and a super nostalgic card to go along with your Barrel Dragon. But basically what this card does is if a face-up dark machine monster you control would be destroyed by battle or by card effects, you can special summon this card from your hand. And then once per turn during the battle phase, quick effect, you can toss a coin 3 times and destroy face-up monsters on the field up to the number of heads. And if this card results in 3 heads, you get to draw a card as well. And then this card can attack during the turn it was activated. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you get to add a level 7 or lower monster from your deck to your hand that tosses a coin as an effect, which I play a single copy copy of Barrel Dragon, which is a little bit of a brick, but I like to play the 1-of Barrel Dragon in the deck because it's like one of my favorite cards in the entire game. If you want to change it out for something else where you don't play Barrel Dragon, you can play a Twin Barrel Dragon, which is a little bit better because you can just normal summon it out. Its effect isn't quite as good, but it's easier to summon to your side of the field. I like this because it's really nice to be able to just normal summon a Barrel Dragon, which is very rare that it actually happens. If I'm going to use something like a Cyberdark Impact or an Overload Fusion, I'll go ahead and summon out the Barrel Dragon, use its effect to pop cards on the field, and then go off from there. But it's still a good 1-of in the deck to be able to play. It's the only real brick that I play in the entire deck besides Ling Ling, because I don't want to draw this, and I don't want to draw my copy of Barrel Dragon. But basically what this card does is you toss 3 coins, and if you call 2 of the 3 of them heads, then you destroy 1 monster your opponent controls, and this effect can only be used once during the main phase, which is basically saying it's once per turn. We then play a single copy of BM4 Blast Spider. Blast Spider is pretty cool because once per turn, you can target 1 Dark Machine monster you control and 1 face of monster your opponent controls and destroy them. And if this card you control that was originally a Dark Machine monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle or sends it to the graveyard, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the original attack of one of those monsters destroyed and sent to the graveyard, which is pretty good just to be able to inflict additional damage to your opponent. But it's a really good overall card to play as a 1-of in the deck. We did play 3 copies of Ash Blossom to round out the monsters, because Ash Blossom is really good to stop your opponent from all sorts of shenanigans, and that pretty much rounds out the monsters. So that's it for those. Let's get into the spells, guys. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Cyberdark Impact. So Cyberdark Impact is a really good card in the deck because it has the ability that you can return 1 Cyberdark Horn, Edge, and Keel from your side of the field, hand, or graveyard to your deck to special summon 1 copy of a Cyberdark Dragon monster from your extra deck. And this card is treated as a fusion summon, which is a really awesome way because it's actually searchable, and it's a really awesome way to actually summon it to your side of the field. 1 copy of Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial is really awesome in the deck to be able to send a copy of like your Ling Ling to the graveyard to be able to equip when you normal summon a copy of one of your Cyberdark monsters, but it's overall a really good card to send stuff from your deck to the graveyard overall. We played 2 copies of Dragon Shrine as well. The Dragon Shrines are really helpful because they send dragons to your graveyard. You don't play any normal monsters. The only thing I've thought about putting in the deck is a single copy of Hunter Dragon, because Hunter Dragon is a normal monster, and then you could send Hunter Dragon and a copy of Ling Ling to the graveyard, which would be pretty helpful to get you 2 dragons for the price of 1, but I haven't really kind of tested it out too much because I feel like the copy of Hunter Dragon would be a little bit of a brick, but at the same time it would be very infrequent when I would draw it. So I've thought about dropping the Barrel Dragon for that and just ignoring the last effect of my Desperado Barrel Dragon. You play 2 copies of Overload Fusion. Overload Fusion banishes monsters from the graveyard, especially a Dark Machine monster from your extra deck, which is your Cyber End Dragon or your Cyber Dark Dragon and your copy of Cyber Darkness Dragon as well. You can summon either of those monsters off the copy of Overload Fusion, which is a really amazing effect to be able to just instantly get them to your side of the field, especially a fusion monster that requires 5 cards in material. This is probably your best way to go into it. Besides playing Future Fusion. Now, Future Fusion is kind of one of those odd cards that, yes, it is really good, and yes, it's a massive Foolish Burial, which is why I play it, because what it does is during the first standby phase after this card was activated, though you choose, you show 1 fusion monster from your X deck, and you send the materials from your deck to the graveyard, which is a really good effect to be able to just send those cards from the deck to the graveyard. And if I do actually get the monster on my side of the field during the next standby phase, then it's great. But if I don't, I still want that massive Foolish Burial effect because I can then use Overload Fusion with Anaconda to go into whatever I want to. But playing this card, your opponent is going to have to use resources to get rid of it, which is why I kind of justify playing this card. But it's an overall really good card just to get a bunch of cards in the graveyard. You play 2 copies of Pot of Duality because you don't special summon that much in this deck at all. And you can kind of live through it if you don't, because you can open up your turn and normal summon that copy of, say, a Cyberdark Horn with an equipped monster onto it and then pass with maybe some backrow backing it up with like Heavy Metal Raiders or something like that with an Ash Blossom backing it up or a Desperado. So you'll be okay if you don't special summon during the first turn, especially if you activate like Future Fusion and get some setup plays. Like the deck needs a little bit more support, which is why I'm excited about the structure deck, but it's overall pretty good to play the Pot of Dualities just to get you an additional draw power in the deck. We then play 3 copies of Lure of Darkness because everything in the deck is dark except for your copies of your Ash Blossom. So you have a lot of different ways to actually get rid of cards, which is why I can again justify playing the Barrel Dragon in the deck, because you can banish the Barrel Dragon off of this, which is basically like a searchable like free banish off the copy of Allure. We play 2 copies of Cyberdark Inferno. Cyberdark Inferno is neat because Cyberdark effect monsters you control that are equipped with equip cards cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, and also your opponent cannot target them with card effects either. And then you can target one Cyberdark monster you control and return it to your hand, and immediately after this card resolves, you normal summon another one, which then activates the effect of your other monsters that are in the deck, like your copies of your Cyberdark Cannon and Claw. They go off with this effect, which is pretty cool. Because when they're sent to the graveyard, their effects will go off. And if this card is in its owner's control, is destroyed by an opponent's card effects, you can add a polymerization spell or a fusion spell from your deck to your hand, which can be Overload Fusion. We then play 3 copies of Heavy Metal Raiders. Heavy Metal Raiders is a neat tech card that I like to play in this deck because it's super nostalgic, the cards that are actually on it. And the first time each Dark Machine monster you control would be destroyed by battle each turn, it is not destroyed, which also your effect, the monsters that are equipped to it, gives it a second time. So your opponent essentially has to destroy it 3 times to get rid of it, which is really cool with this card. And it gains that much attack as well. If you take any battle damage from battles involving it, they gain the attack as well. So it essentially turns them into Beals, which is pretty cool. And it keeps the attack as long as they're on the field. And then once per turn, if a monster you control that was originally a Dark Machine monster destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, then you can special summon a Dark Machine monster from your hand, which is why I really like playing the Barrel Dragon, because it's easy to summon to your side of the field with Heavy Metal Raiders. So make sure your opponent use a lot of resources to get rid of your card. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the extra deck, because we don't play any traps at all. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Cyberdark Dragon. Cyberdark Dragon is a really easy card to summon in the deck because you just take a Keel, a Horn, and an Edge to summon this card, and it gains 100 attack for each monster in your graveyard, which is a really good effect. And also, it has the ability that when this card is summoned, you get to equip a dragon monster to this card, and then it gains attack equal to the dragon monster's attack, which is a really insane effect just to be able to get those added attack points on this card and get really big really quickly. And it's overall a really amazing card. It's not really that hard to actually summon either. We then play 2 copies of Cyber Darkness Dragon as well. Cyber Darkness Dragon's a little bit harder to summon, but it gives you a little bit more of a payoff, which is really cool because basically it takes 5 Cyber Dark monsters to summon it, which is a lot of cards, but Overload Fusion makes this card and Future Fusion make this card really easy to summon, but it must be Fusion Summoned and it cannot be Special Summoned, or it must be Fusion Summoned, and if this card is Special Summoned, then you can equip 1 dragon or machine monster from your graveyard to this card, and it gains attack equal to the original attack of the monster equipped to this card by its effect. And when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can send an equip spell or equip monster you control to the graveyard and then negate the effect if you destroy that card, which is a really amazing effect because we have a card in the extra deck that actually gets you another card on your side of the field, which we'll get into in just a second, that you always want to equip to your copy of your Cyber Darkness Dragon to get it to 6,000 attack, which we'll get into in just a second. We then play 2 copies of Elder Entity Nist and a single copy of Fossil Warrior Skull Knight. These are basically here because when they're sent to the graveyard, you can pop something, and your copy of your Cyberdark Claw will send stuff from your extra deck to the graveyard to use their effects, which is really cool. And this card can sit in the graveyard. These instantly destroy, but Skull Knight will pop something instantly, or not pop something instantly. You actually have to banish this so it can sit there for a minute, which is why I play this card as a 1-of in the deck, and I play Elder Entity Nist, because these are really reactive where I can just pop something, and this is like, hey, wait a minute, I'll do it in a minute. And then the card that you're always going to be equipping to your Cyber Darkness Dragon is actually a copy of Shooting Quasar Dragon. Quasar Dragon is really good because if you equip Quasar Dragon to it and it's sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a copy of Shooting Star Dragon from your extra deck. Even if it was equipped to the monster, since it was leaving the field and is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon Shooting Star Dragon, which is pretty cool to actually get this card out like that. It's just an amazing effect to be able to just immediately summon this random synchro monster with the way that the cards interact with one another. Play a single copy of number 60. Number 60 basically doubles the attack of a monster, lets you draw 2 and discard 1, or lets you be able to special summon a monster from the graveyard, but you do have to either skip your draw phase to get the draw, skip your main phase 1 to special summon the monster from the graveyard, or be able to skip your next battle phase to double the attack of a monster. So basically this is a committing to be able to go into a play, to be able to OTK or go after your opponent. 1 copy of Access Code to be able to OTK your opponent and get multiple pops. Unicorn to be able to spin stuff. Phoenix to pop spells and traps. IP because IP can go into Unicorn and spin stuff. And then Anaconda because it works with all of your fusion spells, which is basically going to be your Overload Fusion the majority of the time, to be able to go off into this. But this is basically one of the best cards in the entire extra deck. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really cool deck to play with. I highly recommend that you guys go ahead and pick up Cyberdarks now. I would estimate that they will probably reprint all of the stuff that I just showed you in the structure deck when their structure deck releases. I guarantee you they're probably going to reprint this in the structure deck, and they're probably going to reprint all of the main deck ones. I wouldn't even be surprised if they reprinted Heavy Metal Raiders in the deck and Desperado Barrel Dragon. Like, that would not surprise me at all with the interactions that they actually go into with this. But I think it's going to be really interesting if they make a Cyberdark End Dragon. I think that's going to be really weird and really cool at the same time. So anyways, guys, this is Dark Armed Duelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can come part of notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below, where you can get all sorts of awesome rewards, like getting your name shirts in your video, getting assigned cards in the mail, or even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron, along with test hands. And we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.